Hello and welcome. If you're on this early, you're probably watching the replay. So give me a hashtag replay and let me know that you're here. I'm hoping everybody is having a great week so far. I know it's only Tuesday, but and it's actually most of your Mondays. So I hope everybody has a fantastic week though coming in. It's so nice that we had that 3-day weekend. My center is open today, so it might be a little bit noisier here than it was yesterday since I am at the center and we are actually open and there are a bunch of children leaving right now. So my office actually sits right outside the main door, the lobby, so you might hear children in the background, but that's what we're here for, right? Are the children. So let me know that you're here when you hop on. Just let me know that you're jumping on. And I'm just kind of giving it a couple seconds for people to be able to log on and find us here. So I'm just filling time with small talk like we usually do, right? I see Christina. Hi, Christina. Hi, Stephanie. I hope you guys are doing good today and hope it was a nice, refreshing, long weekend. So I'm not going to keep you guys too long, so I'll just get right into it. My name is Evelyn Knight, and I am the founder of Childcare Business Professionals, where we help childcare business owners find success while maintaining high quality standards. We also help with just forming that business structure, the policies, procedures, to make sure that you can have a nice, successful center. I also am a childcare center owner, which, like I was saying, I'm here at my center right now in the office. So I know what it's like. I've been a director, I've been an owner, I have been in every position. I have been the cook at a childcare center. So I know pretty much, I've driven vans, I've done it all. I know what it is to be in the trenches. I've owned 3 centers in my lifetime. I've sold them, I've acquired them. I have done a lot in this field. I also have the Childcare Business Coach podcast, which I just bring a lot of information to you guys about what it's like to run and operate a center. And you guys, really quick, well, my light didn't work, but that's okay. We'll just have to skip the light today. I can see just fine, so we're good. So yesterday, we talked about your values, your center values, and that is what we really focused on. Yesterday was, creating that strong foundation through having really solid, strong values. And so we went into that. I gave you guys some other resources, my podcast, my blog on how to create that value. Really, you guys, if there's anything that you do throughout this session, that is like the key piece to get done. So make sure that you do the piece in the workbook, and on that really will set the stage. It'll really give you that roadmap that you need to, that motivation to take your center to the next level. So be sure to do the workbook. I did post a question in the units tab for you guys to just kind of answer and talk about what it is that makes that, what is your audacious value, your big dream you have, that your vision for your center. So the vision is just such an important piece into growing your center. So make sure to do that homework piece. And then today we're going to talk about your center's culture and brand. Tomorrow we'll be talking about developing your dream team by being a leader. And again, like I have been telling you guys, I know a lot of you are thinking, well, a dream team isn't available to me. I pay minimum wage. But I can tell you guys it is. There is a way to do it. I've done it. I will tell you how we've done it. And, of course, there is no such thing as perfect, but we can establish and get that team we really want to see. So that we'll talk about tomorrow is how to recruit. I'll go into like how I do my recruiting, and I'll touch on my onboarding process and just that continuing development of why I have such a great, strong team. And your team, you guys, I cannot even stress to you how important that team element is, because you're only one person. You cannot do it all within your organization, and your team is really what's going to make your vision come alive. Then on Thursday, we're going to talk about building a strong business culture. Your business structure, not culture. So I talk to owners and directors all the time that think they have solid policies and procedures. They think they have a business structure, but they don't. What they have is an employee handbook. That's it. They have a parent handbook and they have an employee handbook, but they do not have policies and procedures. They don't have that solid business structure that really takes your business to the next level. It's what makes sure that you're having consistency and that you have that great customer service and a great experience for your employees. So it really is one of those key pillars to your success to have policies and procedures. And my policies and procedures are so defined that I have a policy for everything. And I mean everything. Like if you look at my onboarding, I have a whole procedure for, it's a 6-month long onboarding procedure. When it comes to enrolling families, I have an entire written out procedure. When it comes to classroom things like how my teachers write out curriculum, that is a written out procedure, how they turn it in, their shopping lists, everything is an actually written out procedure. So it's really what becomes necessary to make sure that you have that consistency and that you're making sure that that vision you have and your culture is all coming to life. It just all comes together. And then my last pillar, which we'll talk about on Friday, is implementing and maintaining high quality research-based standards, which is so very important. It really was what took my business to the next level. It's what got me to the point where I now have a 300 child wait list. And then we do have, I will be actually adding on a couple things over the weekend for you guys, just some bonus materials. And then on Monday, I will be joined by Christina Richmond from TLG Financial Foundations, who is one of my financial advisors. And she's going to just give you guys, her and I will have a discussion basically about creating that strong financial piece. I mean, it's very hard for her to give you that in an hour, but she'll give you a good overview on what you need to make sure that you've got that good financial structure, because that really is part of a very important pillar. I don't teach on finances, so I am not going to put that as part of that, but I did talk to her and ask her if she would mind sharing, because that really is another very, very important pillar in order for us to become successful with what we do. So that is just a recap of what our week is going to look like and what we've already done. So again, say hi as you guys pop in. I see a bunch of you popping in, so let me know you're there. And then feel free to ask questions as we go. I do go and review questions after the trainings. One thing I do actually have to ask you guys though, when I go and review trainings, I know that you're asking me questions as you're watching live. But when I see the questions, I don't actually see what part of the video you're asking them in. So please be specific. Like if I'm talking about your vision and, if you ask something like, well, how do I do that? If you guys could just reference what you're like, how do I instill my values in my staff? Just kind of explain it, because when the videos come through or the questions come through to me, it doesn't show me like specifically what part of the video you were watching. So I'm not sure, like if the question is very general, I really don't have an answer. So if you guys could, when you're doing the replay, just kind of, be specific on what part you're watching. That way, when I go back to answer the questions, I can answer your question accurately. And I do go back in the mornings, and like about an hour ago, I do go back and just kind of try and make sure in that units tab to see if there's any questions you guys have. And feel free to message me. I've gotten a couple messages from you guys. I have no problem too if you want to just message me something more private when it comes to a question. I'm totally happy to answer your questions that way too. So we'll dive in now to your center's culture and how it becomes your brand. And so branding, we hear so much in the business world how important branding is, right? And we know of businesses that have such a super strong brand. Like I can say I'm loving it, and you guys know what company I'm talking about. Doritos has a fantastic commercial out where they don't even say their company's name. They're just showing a picture of a bag, and they say like, you just know what we're talking about. And that is an awesome commercial, because they really have created such a strong brand that they don't even need to say their business's name. You just know who they're talking about. And so that is something to think about. Like, how can we create that in our own centers, right? Very, very important part in building that successful childcare center. And I can tell you, your brand is going to start with your center's culture. You have to be very intentional about the culture you want for your childcare center as a business. I can guarantee you that your centers have a culture already. Whether you've intentionally established it or not, every business is going to establish a natural culture. But you want to really make sure that you're very, very intentional about the culture that you develop for your center. Because if you're not, it's going to develop itself. And most of the time, when a center has a culture, or any business really, that develops itself, it is not a good one. If you have gossip issues throughout your center, if you have poor employee retention, poor employee morale, poor employee performance, I can tell you, if you think to yourself that you just need to get rid of them all and start over again, that's a problem with your center's culture. And you, as the leader of your center, whether you're the director or the owner, you are the one who sets that tone for your culture. So when we love to jump to blame our staff, and I've been there and I've done that. And if you listen to my podcast episode, my latest podcast episode that I just did, I talked about how I was basically to blame for one of my staff's she wasn't performing to the level I expected her to, but it was my fault. After I did an evaluation, I realized this is my fault, not her fault. Same thing if you've got that culture of, like, if you get that feeling that I just need to start over and get rid of them all. That starts with leadership, you guys. It starts at the top, not at the bottom. So things trickle down, right? They don't, you're nurturing them downward. It's not going to come from them. So that's where you need to be really intentional about setting that culture so that you no longer have that culture of my staff doesn't want to do anything. They just, if you've got a lot of call-ins, things like that, that's all your culture. So we need to be intentional. So look at the companies around that we tend to admire, right? That have really, really great cultures. Look at the things that they're very intentional about. One of the examples I love to give is the difference between McDonald's and Starbucks, okay? McDonald's has excellent coffee, right? I'm not a coffee drinker, but my husband, my mom, and people I know, they always talking about how, like, the quality of their coffee is so good. It's really good. And it costs $1. Look at Starbucks coffee. How much does Starbucks coffees cost, right? The difference between the coffees. The difference isn't the quality in the product they're putting out. It's the culture that they're performing. It's the experience they're giving you, right? So Starbucks can literally charge you 5 times the amount. You could probably have the exact same cup of coffee between Starbucks and McDonald's, but it's the culture the two companies have chosen. Now, that is intentional on McDonald's part. They would rather serve a large mass quantity of people, right? Just like Walmart and Target, right? Or Walmart and Macy's. This is intentional. It's what they chose for their companies, right? So you need to intentionally decide, what do you want for your center? Do you want to be Walmart? Do you want to be Macy's? And you guys, let me tell you, there is nothing wrong if you want to be Walmart. That is fine. You can still do that with integrity. You can still do that just fine. It's just you have to decide what it is you want for your center. Just be intentional about it. So that's why, like, your brand and your culture is going to determine who you're attracting. So that's why you really, really want to be intentional. One story I wanted to tell you guys about is the story of Costco. In 1994, Costco was highly criticized throughout the world. I mean, the German banks were actually telling investors not to invest in Costco, the company, because they were saying that it's just not worth it. They don't care about their stockholders, right? So around the world, they were criticizing Costco for putting their customers and their staff before the stockholders. So basically what they're saying is that they were creating a culture within the company that put their customers and staff before their profits. Okay. And they were highly, highly criticized in 1994 as a bad investment because of their business model, the culture that they were creating. That same year, GE was seen as one of the best companies to invest in because they were super aggressive. They were just profit driven, right? So if you look today in our present day, had you invested in Costco versus GE in 1994, if you had chosen to invest in GE, which is what all the experts were telling you to do, you would have had a 600 times return at this point as of today, which is awesome, right? Making 600 times on your money, that's fantastic. But had you gone against the status quo and chosen Costco instead because of the business model of service that they had chosen, you would actually have a 1,200 times return on your money. So think about that. Costco is very intentional about setting up that business culture and brand. We know it, right? How customer service driven they are. If you think of Sam's Club versus Costco, the quality, right, is so different. So they chose to take a slow and steady path to becoming very successful. And it was actually very intentional on their part. They basically, instead of choosing the short-term gains like GE, they chose that long-term growth and success. They didn't look for instant gratification. And I see that with a lot of owners I work for. They're undercutting, they're hiring desperately, they're taking every family they can. They're looking for instant gratification instead of that long-term sustainability. But when you think about it, years later, what's worth more? I know our minds get so set on today, right? But honestly, if you're going to be a sustainable company that makes it through recessions, if you're going to really recession-proof your company, you have to look at the long term. You have to look beyond this year. And that is by what you're going to look at with that vision of yours and really establishing a strong culture. Those are two key pieces that the most successful companies in the world have done. Southwest Airlines is known, it is just probably written, actually the person who developed their culture has written several books on it, and she is actually seen as the authority on providing the best cultures in the world. And I want to give you guys a quote from one of the executives at Southwest Airlines, which was really interesting to me. She said, customer service-based business that happen, let me start over again. She said, Southwest Airlines is a customer service-based business that happens to fly airplanes. Isn't that interesting? So the culture that they created was so people-centered, right? That they just wanted to take care of their customers, their staff, that they also said they happen to fly airplanes. So from the people that apply for jobs with Southwest Airlines every year, only 2% actually get hired on. So many people are trying to work for them because they're such a great company to work for. And they do not pay the highest in the airline industry, but they're just known for having such a great culture to work for that so many people want to work for them. So interesting tidbit to me that, it's just that what they've put out into the world. Whereas like Continental Airlines at one point where they paid better, they were also, a lot of their employees, when they were interviewed, were embarrassed to say that they worked for them. So it's kind of, even though you think of Southwest as it's not like, the highest quality airline, it's the cheapest, yet they have some of the highest customer reviews. They are always top 5 in customer satisfaction, and they have one of the best on-time rates, and they also have the best employee retention. Their employee retention is amazing. So it's kind of interesting when you think about that, right? Especially when they are one of the cheaper airlines. So you really want to make sure that your culture becomes your brand. When you think about your culture, think about the feeling that you want people to have when they come into your center. Culture is kind of that feeling. Your brand is kind of that feeling. When somebody sees your logo, what do you want them to feel? How can you intentionally create that. Think about what you would do if there was a couple moms playing with their children, playing at the park together, and one of the moms tells the other mom, I need childcare, but I don't know where to take my child. Let's say the other mom knows about the different centers. What do you want that other mom to say about your childcare center? What are the kind of things that you want to come up in conversation? That is going to be directly affected by the culture that you establish within your center and the brand that puts forward. So the two work together, right? So your culture is going to create that brand. And those are the things. It's that feeling people have when they're talking about your business outside of your business. So that's very intentional for you to set up. And everything, you guys, you put out there, your advertising, everything is going to be a reflection of your culture. My big thing in my culture is quality, right? So I do not allow my staff to photocopy photocopies. So like, for example, when we have our daily sheets that we give out to the parents every day, or if we have an incident report or a boo-boo note that we're giving out to our parents, my staff knows that they cannot take a photocopied boo-boo note and photocopy that because it's sloppy. They have to go to the computer file, and we usually do it for them, but they have to go to the computer file, print out clean sheets every single time. Because when you photocopy, they end up getting those lines, they end up getting a little off kilter, and it just looks sloppy, right? So that is how in control of my culture and brand I am. I just make sure that my staff knows that we take pride in everything we do here. Everything we do is going to be the highest quality standards. And that comes down to the fact that our photocopied sheets that we hand a parent are going to look like their quality. So that is basically, and it's something my staff can be proud of knowing, that they work for a really high quality center that doesn't, we won't even allow ourselves to put a photocopied sheet out there that looks like it's poor quality. So that's, I know it seems a little crazy that we get down to that minimal, and that is actually one of my policies and procedures. That is something that they know I have in writing. This is how you do this. So everything that you put out into the world is sending a message. Make sure that you're doing it with intention, and I mean everything. You to your employees and your parents, everything is sending that message. Think about, let's see, let me get to my next slide, guys. Sorry. So some of the other things we do to make sure that our culture is staying the way we want, we make sure all the children's faces are clean. We make sure that our lobby is always clean. It's always presentable. It always looks good. It's that when people walk through my door, they're getting that feeling of organization. I make sure my walls are painted every other year. Everything always looks really good. I want them to know that this is a high quality place for their children to be, and that we are very diligent and we notice details, right? So I do notice details. I'm looking at every little detail. I walk through my center every day looking to see, is something off kilter? Is something not right? Does somebody leave something laying around? It's just that constant diligence that goes towards our quality. And that's really what I'm going to be attracting, the type of people that want that high quality, right? So that's something to really think about. So your culture is really going to come from your values. So when you're figuring out what you want out of your culture, the first step you're going to do is figure out, what do you value most as a center owner, right? Or a director. What kind of values do you want to put into the world? My centers, I have two values that are most important in my center. And the first one is high quality research-based standards, and the second one are nurturing environments. Those are the two things that are most important, which quality is really what I call my queen bee role. If you watched yesterday, I told you guys, Sue in the comments mentioned my nails, and I'm always harping on she's one of my members in my membership group, and I'm always telling my girls, remember your queen bee, remember your superpower. Well, quality is our queen bee. And quality is my center's superpower, right? So everything is going to revolve around that quality. Having nurturing environments is high quality in ACE. So everything revolves around that quality. Everything we put out, every decision we make, we ask, like, how does this attribute to our center's quality? Is it going to, is it a NACE standard? Is it, and of course some things aren't going to, NACE couldn't care less if I do photocopy sheets or if I make sure my vans are clean, right? They don't care, but I have to make sure, so I just kind of have to go back and like, how is that reflecting the quality of my center? So everything is going to be revolved around that. My onboarding process, my philosophies, my ongoing training. We have committees throughout the center to make sure that we're always performing that. I actually have a quality a leadership committee that's called our quality accountability team, which is made up of parents, teachers, and my management team, that we get together once a month to make sure that we're maintaining that high level of quality. So a couple of the other values I have that revolve around my center's culture is honesty and integrity too. That's just something I think, again, that kind of goes back to quality. You can't really be high quality if you don't have honesty and integrity, right? So that is just a big part of what we are. So when you're coming up with your values, I wanted to give you guys a couple examples of some of the companies that have done the best at having really strong values that really reflect in their business's culture, and then it reflects really well in their brand. So again, I'm going to go with Southwest Airlines. Southwest Airlines culture their value statement actually is: live the Southwest way, a warrior spirit, servant's heart, fun-loving attitude, work the Southwest Airlines way, safety, reliability, friendly customer service. So if you notice about that statement, it really isn't too, they don't talk too much about, like it's not like your vision statement where it's going to be wordy. It doesn't explain too much. It really doesn't go in too much to just that technical part. It's just a couple of words that they chose and put together, right? It's really just kind of out there, which is nice. It's easy. It's just pretty easy for them and for us to understand. So I'm pulling up Disney's. I wanted to read you guys Disney's statement really quick also, because it's actually pretty cool. And when you think of Disney versus, like, let's say Six Flags, you really know that Disney has an amazing culture and brand, right? You just know that culture of excellence that they've come out with is just absolutely wonderful. So let me find it. Okay, so this is Disney's value statement is openness, honesty, integrity, courage, diversity, and balance. That's it. So basically, those are the key words that define their values. And then their culture is going to revolve around those keywords. So that's openness, honesty, integrity, courage, diversity, and balance. That is Disney's value statement. So then they take those principles, and everything in their business is going to revolve around that. So it's kind of interesting. Like, my son once told me, we had actual annual passes to Six Flags one year, and we would go all the time, like once or twice a month. We'd go to Six Flags. And that same year we went to Disneyland one time for a few days. And my son, who I think he was about 10 at the time, actually said to me, he said, "Mom, one trip to Disneyland is worth 10 trips to Six Flags." So when you think about that, think about the different branding and culture that Disney has put into their business model. How different that is, right? My son, who was 10 years old at the time, said he would rather experience one Disney trip than go to Six Flags pretty much every month like we were doing at that time. So it's really an eye-opener in that how well a business performs. And as centers, we tend to not see ourselves as businesses, but we are. And you've really got to keep mindful of that you are running a business. And if you're going to get the enrollment, and if you're going to keep the enrollment, if you're going to recruit the staff you want to recruit, and you're going to keep them, you really have to be intentional. You've got to be intentional about the culture you're creating within your center in order to accomplish that goal of enrolling, retaining, hiring, and retaining. That's really what it comes down to. Because enrollment, I see so many people who struggle with enrollment, but enrollment's really just the first step. Once you enroll, you've got to continue to retain. That is even more important, right? Otherwise, if your center is a revolving door and you're constantly losing children, you're just constantly chasing, just that constant chasing. So you've got to just figure out, what are you going to stand for, right? Which is a lot having to do with your vision. Then when you take that vision, you find the values that are going to complement that vision, and then you have to be intentional about making that come alive within your center. So that is just really just the foundational pieces. The last thing is, if you are a center owner and you or a director, and you guys, one of the things I do want to mention, I have heard from a few of you where you're saying, well, my owners really aren't involved. There's nothing I can do because it all comes from the owner. I feel for any director that's owner isn't present. I really do. I feel like if they're not involved and they don't help you, that is so hard as a director. But you are the leader of your center, and you can accomplish this without the owner. You are the one that the teachers are looking towards, right? You are the one leading the center. You're the one that they're looking at. So what you do is really going to help to motivate them. Okay. So when you decide to make this shift, when you've got your vision and you just know it, and then you put these values in place and you're ready to take that next step, and you're ready to start intentionally creating a culture of greatness in your center. And it really, what ends up happening is if you're in business already, and if you haven't, it's awesome, because then you can start out. If you're just building up your center from the scratch, it's so much easier, because then you can establish this. Hi, Marissa. You can basically establish this from the get-go. But if you're not, and you've been in business, you can still change your culture, but it's going to be a little bit more work. It's going to take a little bit more time. So what you're going to have to do is build trust. What's going to end up happening is mainly it's going to start with your staff. They're going to kind of look at it like, okay, yeah, you haven't really cared before. You haven't done this before. Why now? Right? And they're probably going to think that this is just something that's going to come and go. It's not something that you're really going to commit to. So you're really going to have to work at building trust. And what you're going to have to do is live it. You're going to have to become what you want your center to be, and just go day in and day out and live it. At first, it's going to be difficult because you're going to be doing it alone, right? But if you can make that transition from having a manager's mindset to a leadership mindset, and go from being just a manager to a leader, people will follow you. People want to follow leaders. They want to be led. And people stay loyal to good leaders. So when you start making this transition, you are going to have to prove yourself. But when you do, you'll be amazed what happens. Your staff will just, your retention will go up. They'll want to do their jobs really well. They go from, doing a mediocre job to wanting to do their job really, really well, because they believe in you. And it's, again, kind of the same concept with your vision, right? When you have that strong vision that makes people want to lead. Well, this is the next step to that. You're going to take that vision now. You're going to take the values that give those visions, turn it into your center's culture, which is also going to become your center's brand. That is going to help you attract the people you want. People will start talking about it. It's natural, right? What do you guys think about companies like Trader Joe's? They started small. Most companies start small and then they grow, right? They attracted within their local communities through their reputation, because they had those visions, the values, and the culture. That's how they ended up becoming what they are today. And so sometimes it might seem like, well, I'm just in a small town. It can be done, you guys. Or even if you're in a big city, yeah, I think it could be a little bit harder, because you can maybe feel like you're going to get drowned out. But it can and will be done. So it starts with you. You start living it, and people will follow. Now, that's not to say it does take a lot of training, right? So part of what I mean when I say that you need to start living it, you need to start putting the work into it. You need to start developing that onboarding process for your staff. So when you first hire somebody, and I can tell you, for like my members, I haven't done the training yet on onboarding, which I will be, that is coming up for my members, but my onboarding process starts before I even post a job opening. I look at it, and I'll talk about that more tomorrow, so I won't get into it a little bit more today, but onboarding is a huge process, right? Where you're attracting people. So if you're going to have that strong culture, it's going to start with the kind of people you have in your organization, right? So it starts with you, the message. You've got to be solid and clear on what you want for your center. And I don't mean that I want my center to be full, I want a wait list. I mean, like that vision that we talked about yesterday. Like for me, I want to know that I'm making a difference in the life of children. That is what I want. And I want to make sure that I'm providing quality childcare to every kind of child, whether they're rich, poor, I don't care what, no socioeconomic barriers. I want a variety of children in my center. That's pretty much my vision, right? So when you look at that, you're building everything is going to be built around that. And everything has to go into that. So you're attracting people who believe in that also. And it's going to happen. What will end up happening is as you're doing job interviews, your job interview is going to suddenly reflect your vision. You're going to be asking questions to make sure these people can fit into your center's culture and they believe in what you believe in. So that, first of all, is going to help you with the retention, right? Because you're going to have people who are aligned with what you believe in. And then you'll soon find that you're just attracting them and they're coming to you. And this is a place they want to work because of what you've put out into the world and the reputation that you've created, right? And it does happen naturally. It's kind of ironic how, like, even though I really don't advertise anymore, but it's just like word of mouth, parents talking about it. Well, what ends up happening is people hear about my center and then they want to come to work here. So I don't even really post job openings anymore because I just have so many people trying to get in, whether it's to work or who are trying to enroll. So it's all just word of mouth. It's what people talk about in my center throughout my city. And that just happens naturally, but it wasn't always that way. I had to really work for it. And when I made that intentional shift from just being an owner who came and just with no roadmap, with no vision, when I did that shift, it did take time for my staff to get on board because they just honestly didn't know, is this just a whim I have that's going to be fleeting, or is this really permanent change? So when it did become permanent change, then it gave them a better place to work, and it really just made them want to be here, right? So I had better retention at that point. Now, I'm also going to tell you, I did lose staff. There's definitely going to be turnover. When you make that decision to go from mediocre to doing something great, there are going to be people who don't want to do the work involved. You've probably hired people who don't align with your philosophies. They don't align with your vision or your values. They don't have those same values. When they see that you are really oriented and you are really driven and committed to those values, they will go. They will. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it, you guys. I don't really believe in sugarcoating things and making it sound like, everything's going to be beautiful. They are going to leave. But that gives you the opportunity to replace them with somebody better that can make your center a better place. Tomorrow, I'll talk to you guys a little bit about how I recruit people, because I know the first thing you think of is like, oh, it's so hard to hire as is. What am I going to do when people start leaving, right? I'm sure that's the first thing that went through your mind, and then you just like, oh, maybe I'll just leave the things the way they are. And I can tell you guys, there are other ways, and the better you get, the more value that you start to give your staff and your families, the more everything will just kind of flow and fall into place. And one of the things I really want to stress to you guys, because I see it all the time, is value does not mean how much you pay your staff. It does not mean, that you're giving like gourmet lunches to your customers, right? Value is so much bigger than that. Like I said yesterday, your vision it gives people a mission. There's been so many studies on what motivates people to work. And in the top 3 things that make people love their job and what motivates them to go to work, their pay is not even top 3. It was in the top 5, but it wasn't top 3. The number one thing that motivated people in their jobs and that people look for in work is knowing that they had meaningful work. That is the number one thing. So that vision becomes your meaningful work, right? The next thing, the number 2 thing, is knowing that they are valued. So when you create an intentional culture, you can create that intentional culture that values that human capital, right? And when you value human capital, that includes your customers too. So that means that you've hit those 2 things, the 2 most important things for staff when it comes to a job. And notice it has nothing to do with what you pay them. It's that they know that their job is meaningful and that they know that they are valued. Those are, and appreciated. Those are the 2 top things that employees are looking for in a job. So think about that. And that's where you're going to create your culture, right? So that you can end up fulfilling that and making sure that you can give that to your staff. Because your team is what is going to become your center. You're only one person. You can't do it all, right? So if you want that family retention and you want your center to be somewhere that people are fighting it into, you got to have that dream team. You've got to have it. And you can by being the leader that they need. And that's going to start with you intentionally forming that culture. You've got to be that culture first, and they will follow. So again, you're going to have to build that trust to get there. You will lose some, but that's okay. You're going to replace them with the people that you should have that will take your center to the next level. I'll tell you guys, when I first went through this journey, I had gone through a period, and I've always had really good employee retention. I had gone through a 3-year period where I did not have to hire one time in 3 years. I did not lose a single employee for 3 straight years, and I didn't have to hire. But my business was really struggling. I didn't have an intentional culture. I wasn't leading by my vision. And I wasn't happy as an owner. I didn't want to do it anymore. And so when I made this transition, and this was during that whole time that things were just disasters for me, but I don't know why. Even during then, I cannot tell you why my staff was still loyal to me, but I've always been able to have loyalty in my staff. But during that time when we decided to transition, it was so hard for me because as I started making these changes and putting policies into place that really focused on integrity, on that quality piece, on that nurturing we've always had. That's never been a problem for us, but the quality really was at one point, the research-based quality, and just that, really high integrity of the center and making sure everything we put out was high quality. I lost like 6 staff members within 2 months. And that was devastating for me. I literally went from 3 years of not losing a single staff member, no turnover in 3 years, to suddenly losing 6 losing 6 within a couple month period. And I had to question, like, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. Maybe this isn't the time for this kind of growth. But I persevered, and I'm so glad I did at this point because now my center is so much better. At that time, I used to struggle for enrollment. I didn't have a wait list. We had high family turnover. We were losing more families than we were gaining. It literally felt like my center was a revolving door. Every Monday, it felt like we were starting new children, and every Friday, we were losing a child. Literally, the children that we were starting Monday just replaced the child we'd lost Friday. So we were never getting ahead, and we just were really struggling, right? So I'm so glad that I stayed on this journey to really focus on my vision, intentional, change my culture, because it's led us to the place we are today. It really is. And that's why I started with these 2 as my my first 2 pillar pieces, because that's where we started as the company and where I started to see that shift in being sustainable, right? So I'll tell you, it's not an easy journey, but it is so, so worth it in the long run. Your first year is going to be hard, but after that, the growth you see, it will make the rest of your life, you guys, and your career as a childcare owner or director so much easier. So it is so worth the work. And it makes you really proud to own that center or to lead that center. It just makes it a place that you can be proud to be at. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. And let me know if you guys have any questions. Hi, Danielle. How are you? And Cheryl, you're welcome. Thank you for being here. So, feel free to leave questions in the comments. Let me know what you guys think. I know this is all like hard and heavy, but I can't even tell you how worth it is. And right now, for what we're about to experience with the economy, we really don't know. Are we going to go into a really bad recession? I just read an article, my state of Nevada just hit a 28% unemployment rate. And I know that's probably temporary, but it is historically the highest that any state has ever seen in American history. So you got to wonder, is this going to throw us into another recession? I hope not. I hope the economy was strong enough that we'll bounce back. But again, I'm preparing for the worst, hoping for the best. So these are just really those solid pieces that you need in order to be one of the centers that survive this, right? Because we're going to see a lot of centers go out of business throughout this. So this is what we're going to need to be one of those centers that makes it through and survives. So that is what I have for you guys today. If you don't have any questions, let's see. Roxy says it's a shift of mentality, and sometimes yes, absolutely. It is an absolute mind, and you guys, everything, it comes down to your mindset. I was reading, I'm reading this really great book right now, and I was reading last night, and I thought I highlighted and bookmarked the page, but I couldn't find it, and I was going to give it to you guys today. So when I find it, I'll post it. But it was talking about how it all comes down to mindset shift, or your mindset, right? And in the book, they gave an example of two different stonemasons, and they were both building this cathedral that was going to take their entire life to build. And this person went and interviewed one stonemason and said, how do you like your job as working on this cathedral? And the one stonemason actually said to the gentleman interviewing him, he's like, what is there to like? I come in every day, I do the same job, I work with stone, and I'm never going to live to see it happen. So what is there to like? So then the interviewer went to the next stonemason, and he went and said, same question, how do you like your job? And he's all, what's there not to like? I'm building a cathedral. I may never get to see it completed, but I get to say that I contributed to this. It is such an honor to be able to contribute to such a great and grand job. So think about the difference in mindset, right? This guy, the first gentleman, is saying I hate my job. It's awful. I'm never going to see it. It's senseless. The second guy is looking at it how lucky am I? It's all about mindset. That's it, you guys. So when you have that mind shift, right? And you do have to be intentional. I mean, I've talked to you guys before about how my husband teases me about the brainwashing thing, that I brainwash myself, which I kind of do, because I'm constantly reading these books and I'm constantly listening to podcasts that keep me focused on, and I've talked to you guys before how there are times through this crisis where I wake up some mornings and I'm like, I just don't want to do this. I can't do this. So I start my days reading a devotional that's going to be positive and help me through. If I'm still struggling after that, I'll journal a little bit. And then if I'm still struggling, I will find a podcast episode that's, business related about how to get through this time. So that's pretty much what, I just kind of fill my mind with so much positive information that it gets to the point where that I finally just change my mindset. So it is all about mindset, which is hard, but you can do it. I promise. So that's what I have for you guys today. I actually have a meeting with my members coming up in 7 minutes. So I am going to hop off. So let's see. Adela says, I am reading right now The Success Principle. Totally recommended. Yes, that is. And I can tell you guys what I'm reading right now. I have it right here with me. It starts with a Y by Simon Sinek. Awesome book. Really great. Highly recommended. As you can see, I've got a bunch of bookmarks highlighting it to death. It is a fantastic book. So it's been wonderful. I think I've read I sat down this weekend and read about 50% of it just in one sitting. So definitely worth the read. So I hope that was helpful for you guys. Again, ask questions in the comments. No problem. You know, if you guys have anything, let me know. I hope everybody has a great night, and join us tomorrow for Building Your Dream Team, which is probably going to be the most popular session in this series. Have a great night, everybody.